Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Ministry Hacks Leadership Podcast. Today, we're going to be diving into something that every person needs, but many struggle with, and it's finding authentic community. And so today, we got our first guest ever, Pastor JD Reyes. Been in ministry, total over 15 years?
Yeah, long time.
Pastoral ministry, 3 years. So he's going to be talking with us about how to build community, the importance of it. It's going to be good. So thanks for joining us today, JD. Tell us a little bit about how you got started in ministry, what led you into ministry.
I grew up coming to Calvary. My parents gave their lives to Christ after I was born and started coming here to Calvary when I was a baby. And so I grew up in the church environment, and my parents started serving in the children's ministry when I was in junior high. And so I just kind of tagged along in that sense, serving alongside them. And then in high school, I was like an assistant leader, I guess, at youth. And then when I kind of walked away from the Lord for a while I was in high school, but when I came back at 19 is when I really felt the initial call to pastoral ministry. I didn't know when it would be or what it would look like, but at that point I was just on fire, wanted to be used by God, and I knew that they needed a first grade Sunday school teacher. And so I was like, all right, I can teach 7-year-olds. I can do that. And so I went and did that for a while. That turned into an internship eventually over here at the church, pastoral internship. So I did that for about 3 years. And then the Lord threw a curveball at us, called me to join the Marine Corps. Joined the Marine Corps, was a part of a small church plant there in North Carolina where we were stationed, and launched a youth group there. Were the youth directors for a few years until he called us back here to Tucson. And that's when the pastoral call that he had for me was fulfilled 9 years later. So
here, quick question, not in the notes, but it's former active duty.
Former active duty.
That's the right way to say it, right? So don't ever
Marine.
say
No,
ex-Marine.
Yeah, don't say ex-Marine, just say former Marine.
There you go.
Nice.
Fun facts. All right. Thank you for your service.
No, appreciate it. Thank you.
But yeah, so we're going to talk about some community today. I know that's a big thing
Yeah, man.
for you and Brittany. And when we're thinking about, what could we talk about? I mean, that just was like a no-brainer. And Amber, too, she's just like, community. They're great at it. I feel like everywhere you guys go, you have this gift of building community. So getting into our topic a little bit, why do you believe community is such a vital aspect of, not only church, but life?
So community is, when you look at specifically, when we're talking about in the church setting, when you look specifically at Acts 2:42, right here, I'm just going to read it right now because I don't want to butcher anything. So in Acts 2:42, when it's and a lot of churches use this as the description of what the church should be. So obviously this is right when the church is beginning after Jesus ascended into heaven. And it says this: and they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and the fellowship, to the breaking of bread and the prayers. And so there's these four aspects that we see of what the church devoted themselves to. And 3 of the 4 of those things are communal: the fellowship, the breaking of bread, and the prayers, praying together. The 3 of those things are communal. The only the one, the apostles' teaching, is what a lot of people think of when they think of church is, I go to this service on Sunday and I listen to somebody teach and I listen to worship and I partake in that. A lot of people in this Western culture think that's what church is, but when you read that verse, that's only 25% of what the church was doing. And so community is deeply important. The church is as we say all the time, as we've heard a lot, it's those that have a relationship with Jesus, those that are the sons, the adopted sons and daughters of God. And so it's a family that God has created, and in order to really experience the church for what God intended it to be, to really experience like the full blessing of what church is, you have to be involved in community. You have to be involved in fellowship. You have to be involved in your brothers and sisters' lives. Like we see so many times in the Bible where we're commanded to bear one another's burdens, right? Jesus said that the world will know your love for me by the love that you have for each other. And so there's just so many aspects to why community is so important. And when you look at God, sorry, I'm kind of going off on a tangent right now, but when you look at God in himself, like we're created in God's image, and I really believe that part of that is this like this need for community, because God in himself in the Trinity experiences perfect community in himself. And us created in his image, I think, is an aspect of that, of this like deep need to be one. And you look at Jesus' prayer in John 17 too, like his prayer for the church is that we would be one. Mm-hmm. And the only way for us to be one is to be in relationship with each other, to be in friendship with each other, to be in community and do life together. And so, I mean, there's so many things that you can go from scripture that point to like why community is so important. But I mean, I also have like, my wife and I have a very deep like personal experience too, as to why community was something that was really like solidified as such a deep need. And just kind of, it was like kind of an awakening for us. And this is while I was in the Marine Corps, but my wife and I went through, while we were in the Marine Corps, we like wanted to have kids. We'd been married for a year at that point. Well, actually it was 2 years. So I left for boot camp a year after we got married. And then we actually got to live together again, like after another year of like training and everything. So we like wanted to start a family. It took a year later, we started seeing doctors. Nothing was happening. We were told we weren't going to be able to have kids. So we started the adoption process. Long story short, my wife got pregnant, ended up having a miscarriage 6 weeks later. And that, I remember going through that experience and being so confused as to why God would allow something like that. And what we did was we called our community, our small group, and we were in North Carolina at the time, weren't around family or anything like that. And they told us to go over to their house. We went over to their house. They all showed up, and they just sat around us, laid hands on us, and just cried with us, and just prayed with us, and put on worship music, and just like worshiped God with us. And I remember in that moment sitting there, and it just like dawned. I almost felt like the Holy Spirit telling me like, this is what church is. Like, this is what the church was created for. And after that, that's where my wife and I are like, this, like, community is so important. Like this Western idea of just showing up to church on Sunday and then going home and doing your own thing and then going back again on Sunday is like, that is not, like, if that's how you see church, if that's what you're doing, man, then you are missing out on the huge blessing that church is. Like, from the biblical aspect, from the personal experience, like, community is so important, man. Yeah. So important.
No, that's good. Thanks for sharing that. And that was going to be my next question, is like, what made you, really just think that's so important, because I think, like you say, that's something a lot of people miss, or they don't even think about, like, because they think it is just show up, go to a show, and then go home, and, maybe they have a friend or two. But I mean, yeah, it's like community is everything. We're not meant to do life alone. Right. Or church alone. What do you think are some misconceptions of what people have about what community, or what real biblical community looks like?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that comes to mind is a lot of people think that community is going to a Bible study and talking about doctrine and talking about theology and then going home. because that while that is incredibly important, and I'm not downplaying that at all, that is not that's not developing deep relationships with each other. That's not getting real with each other. That's not bearing one another's burdens. That's not like confessing your sins to each other. That's not holding each other accountable. And so I think there is a misconception that community is either going to a Bible study and talking about doctrine and theology and getting in these like deep conversations and thinking that you're building community because of that, or if you're just sitting at church and you know people's names and you have these surface level conversations with people, people think like, oh yeah, like this is my community people, and it's like, nah, dude, like those, like your community are the people that know you, like know your weaknesses, that you share with, that you, like you said, like do life with, that you hold accountable, that they hold you accountable to, like people that like experiencing the deep aspects of what friendship and relationships are, and that's hard. I mean, that's not an easy thing, and that's why a lot of people shy away from it, because it takes you being vulnerable. It takes you having to allow somebody to to see and experience like who you are behind the mask. And I say behind the mask because I mean, again, with church, a lot of people have this misconception that when you go to church, you have to act like you're perfect and you have to act like you got everything figured out. And so so I'm gonna go to church and I'm gonna put my church mask on and I'm gonna act like everything's great.
Hey, brother.
Yeah, God bless you, man.
brother.
God's good. How's everything doing?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so blessed, man.
Right.
Everything is great. And it's like people think that that's like the part that you have to play at church, and it's like, nah, dog. Like that's not. That's like that's how the Pharisees were, bro. That's what Jesus was preaching against, man. Was he was like, dude, you guys are whitewashed tombs, man. You guys look great on the outside, but on the inside, you're full of dead man's bones, dude. So community is not just putting up this like fake facade on who you are, but it's like opening up to the things that you're like wrestling with, struggling with, being there for somebody, asking the questions to like make somebody like feel comfortable, and like loving somebody well as they're like going through things, and being there for people when they're experiencing difficult times in their life. So I mean, yeah, I think building community is not easy. Like it takes, like I said, being uncomfortable. It takes being vulnerable. But
And so would you say like the biggest obstacles for someone coming into church for the first time, like you think that's it? It's like, hey, don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want to be known.
yeah,
I don't want to be.
I think that's interesting. I think somebody coming to church for the first time, I would say most people, I mean, even if I were to put myself in that situation, walking into a church for the first time where I don't know anybody, where I don't have any like relationships with anybody, like I'm going to be like more reserved. I'm kind of checking things out. Like I don't know if these people are whack jobs. Like, I don't know what stuff's going on here. You know what I'm saying? So I almost feel for people that are first coming to church, that's where from the church leadership aspect, like I feel like that's more our job to make ourselves take on the burden of being uncomfortable and step into that relationship and like introduce ourselves to people, like ask questions, be available, like really doing everything that we can to making someone that's just walking into a church feel seen and like known and loved. And so I would say someone first coming to church, that's where I feel like it's more on us to like take that step and be like, you know what, like I'm gonna go out of my way, because that's one of the things that our pastor in North Carolina did. That I had grown up going to Calvary, and I had a certain perception of what pastors were and how church leaders were and how they were supposed to be. And mega churches are tough, dude, because when you are a pastor of a mega church, like you you can't be personal with every single person that walks through the door. When you got a small church, this was our first experience at a small church, and I had never experienced like the pastor recognizing every single new person and making his way and having like conversations with every new person. And that was something that was surprising for us. It's like the pastor, like as soon as we walked in, he's like, "Oh, this is your first week. Like, I'm Jesse. What do you guys do for you?" And like inviting us over to his house, man, and like and being there for us was like that is what bought us in. Because I mean, no offense, like Jesse, if you ever watch this, I love you and you know this, but it was hard for us in the beginning because Jesse he was just starting to teach consistently, and it was hard, bro. It's hard to sit through the sermons sometimes, but we could not leave that church because he was a shepherd, bro. Like he loved us, he loved the people in that church, and he was there and he was present, and it was like, dog, that is a man I will follow. That is a man, like even if the teachings are rough sometimes, like I will follow that man because he genuinely loves us. Like he genuinely cares for us.
We kind of hit this a little bit, but so speak to like the ministry leader, pastor, someone serving in a church who's like, I want community. I don't know how to do it. Like, what are some practical things? Like, hey man, like you got to do X, Y, Z. Like, what would you say? Like,
for the pastor that's leading a church, a pastor that's like leading a ministry, I would say a couple things. If you want your church to experience community, then you and your team, your leadership team, have to be experiencing deep community. So that's where you got to start. Like you start with building genuine friendships and real tight, close relationships with the people that you are serving with every week. Like that is where you have to start. Like as the shepherd, as the leader, your job is to shepherd the leaders that are going to go out and like shepherd the flock. And so you need to make sure that that is your like primary investment. And this is one of the things that I talked about a little bit, but I truly believe that opening your home up is so important. Like you have to be willing. And this is one of the things that I recognized about Jesus as I was reading through the Gospels, is that Jesus is so willing to be inconvenienced. Like he's on his way somewhere and he sees the blind man on the way and he stops everything and sits in that inconvenience, right? It goes off of what his plan was. It goes off of what he necessarily like wanted to do, but he sees there's this need that he is willing to fill, and he sits in it. And so us as like opening up our homes is, for some people it is an inconvenience, but it's so important, man. Like it's so important to let people in. When you're letting people into your life, dude, letting people into your home is I'll just use an example. One of the things that we do at the young adults group is every third Thursday, after service, we invite everyone from the ministry over to our house. And so we have like sometimes 80, 100 young adults like at our house from like 10 p.m. until like 4 in the morning, which is just nuts. And I've had so many times where young adults, it was their first time ever coming to Ignition, like going up to them, meeting them, inviting them over to my house, and then walking into my house and being like, I've never been invited to a lot of my friends' houses. Like, I can't believe I just met you tonight and you're like letting me into the place where your wife and your kids sleep. Like, that's crazy. Is there risk in that? Yeah, absolutely, dude. But there's risk in like, if it's not risky, bro, then it's like, what are we even doing here? You know what I'm saying? So it's like people just being blown away by that, man. And just being like, letting people into your space, man, letting people into your home, and really that's where things get get deep, dude. Like those conversations that we have around the fire in my backyard with our leaders team. So we do that once a month with the whole ministry, and we do another one once a month with our team where we have them over at our house once a month for a dinner, where we celebrate whoever's birthday was that month. And I think that those creating opportunities for that, where it's like the whole idea of this is to build up our friendships and relationships with each other, like really get to know each other like deeply. Like I was about to say, the conversations that we have around my fire, man, like once it hits like 11 o'clock midnight, like those conversations get deep, dude. And like I've been able to really get to know a lot of people like so well in those conversations, and just be like, again, like vulnerable myself, dude, and talk about things that I like struggle with and wrestle with and things like that, and just really build that relationship. But again, for like pastors and leaders, it's got to start with your team. Like you can't just tell your team, hey, you guys need to go out and build community. If your team's not experiencing like community in themselves, like that's just how are they going to know how to do it well if they're not experiencing it, if you're not really creating that environment with your team.
So what is your leader meeting like, or community having them over look like? Is it kind of just, hey, we're going to meet, have food, see where the Holy Spirit takes it? Or do you have like
it depends. Like sometimes, so we'll do, when we get there, we'll just kind of hang out and talk with each other, catch up. We'll have dinner where we all just sit around tables and eat. And the thing is, like, we don't even have to like make a no phone policy, because like people are just like engaged in community. And that's the thing. Like when we set up our seating at our house, like we try to set up all the seating, because we have a team of like just over 20 young adults, and so we try to sit everyone in a really close space so that we can like sit and have conversations with each other. And so for dinner, that's what we do. We sit and we talk for a while. Once we're like ending it up, whoever's birthday it is, we have them like talk about, we ask them like what the Lord really taught them and showed them this last year, and what they're really hoping to experience or grow in this next year. And then after that, we'll either do like, for our Christmas party, we just had a bunch of like little games that my wife like came up with for us to play, which was a lot of fun. And then we have this game that we play that it's called, oh my goodness, it's called The And. And it is, you definitely have to like go through these cards and like take some of these cards out. So we're not
ministry hack.
But there it is.
Go through the cards.
Go through the cards first, always. And then so everyone gets these questions, and it asks like a personal question, like a personal question about yourself or your past or an experience. And so everyone picks a card, and when it's your turn, you get to pick anybody in the group to ask the question to. They answer the question, and then they get to pick anyone that's left their question that they chose. And so we do that almost every month, and my team like loves it. It's not because we're like, all right guys, we're gonna do this. It's because my team's like, man, let's do that game again. Because it gives you the opportunity to ask like genuine questions to people that you don't normally talk to, because people tend to obviously get into the form, they got their close friends that they just genuinely connect with. And there's another thing that we do for our leaders retreats. We call it Friends and Few, where we have a 5-minute conversation where I have questions written out for the asker, and throughout the time of the retreat, you sit with every single leader, and you have 5 minutes where you're just asking questions. And then after that 5 minutes is up, they have 5 minutes of just asking you questions. And through that in itself, and we've done it with like the whole group a couple times, not for 5 minutes, but like 2 minutes, where it's like, all right, you get to ask questions for 2 minutes, and just make it like this super long thing for.
What's an example of a question?
An example like, what was your childhood like? Like what are some of your strengths and what are some of your weaknesses? Like things of that sort. Just like kind of broad questions that really allow someone to answer. And the thing is too, it's like I don't want them to just strictly stick to the script. I want them to, like, if somebody says something that you're interested in, like make it a conversation. Right. Don't just make it like the super weird. Yeah. Okay, I have my questions, and you have your answer that you give every single person every time. And it's like, obviously the point of this is to engage in relationship and find somewhere where you guys can like connect and like build each other up.
Is each person's the same question?
So so everyone has the same questions. But the conversations are so different, man. Yeah. The conversations that I have with, and it's awesome for me too, because it's like I get to sit with all of my leaders and get to talk to them about like these. And a lot of times I already know all the answers to these questions, so I'll just ask them things that I've been like wanting to ask them about or that I'm curious about. Like, what was your relationship like with your dad? Like what? Like certain things that I'm just like curious about as their leader. And then another thing that I do every week with our team is when we have our meeting before service, we'll meet like an hour and a half before service. And no, that's not true. We'll meet an hour before service. So our leaders meeting is 30 minutes. And then we're out there like meeting people 30 minutes before service starts. So that 30 minutes, I'll throw out the game plan that I already sent them that week. And then we'll break into small groups for prayer. So like groups of 3 and 4 for people to like share their prayer requests and pray for each other. And then what I'll do is I'll meet with a different individual every week, one-on-one, just to maintain that relationship and to just make sure that I'm like keeping up with my team and I'm checking in on like where they're at with their job, where they're at with their grandparents' health that's on the decline, just making sure that I'm like really that I know what's going on.
Being intentional
with that came from the female leaders having a hard time with me because I would only go and get coffee with the male leaders. Like, I'm a married dude. Like, I'm not gonna play that game, bro. Like, even if that's gray area, like, it's not ministry hack. Don't hang out one-on-one with a girl. So I was that was coming up a lot, and I was like, what is a way that I can be intentional with this, but be incredibly like accountable with like where I'm at, and so that was just something that I started because that was an issue that was brought up, and just have been doing it for like 2 years, man, and it's so beneficial, dude.
So you listed community takes being willing to be inconvenienced, uncomfortable. What does that look like practically?
What does that look like practically? So with the inconvenience, I'll just throw an example out there that my wife and I were on our honeymoon. Like, we did a little vacation honeymoon in Phoenix, a couple hours away. And we got back late that night at like 10 p.m., 11 p.m. Found out that one of our leaders and his wife were having a miscarriage. And my wife and I were tired. Like, I had to work the next day, but it was like texting and be like, hey, would you guys want to come over and like just be with somebody? And immediately they're like, yes, please. And came over to the house, dude, and just like cooked them some burgers at midnight, bro. We just sat in our living room and just like talked with them and like prayed with them and cried with them, man. And it's like, was that inconvenient? Absolutely. But dude, that's what community is. Like, I'm willing to make myself inconvenienced. I'm willing to make myself uncomfortable for your sake. And I mean, that's what we see Jesus do constantly, bro. And again, like the opening up your home, dude, like cleaning your house and getting stuff prepped and then cleaning up afterwards, because young adults don't typically clean up. So my yard is like trashed on Friday. And so it's like, but it's like, dude, this is worth it, man. And then even like when we were looking for a house, it was my wife and I were like looking for houses and only considering houses that had like a yard where we could like host people and like build community. And when you're like considering like, all right, what are things that we can update with our yard or like with our house, it's like you have that in mind. Like, okay, how can we like create more space for people to like sit? Like, how can we create a better environment for people to like hang out? And so like these little inconveniences. And another one I would say is just being willing to like be late, man, because sometimes, well, I'll be like, we've got our flow, right, with service. We've got our greeting time, and I'll be talking with somebody, and it just turns into a moment where it's like this person really needs to be ministered to, and you think like, oh man, but service is late and all this other stuff. And I know there's different things involved, but with the freedom that that I experience with the young adults, it's like, you know what, dude, if greeting time goes 10 minutes, then who cares, bro? Like this is an opportunity for me to step into a moment that is inconvenient, but this is where I feel like God has me right now. Yeah. And so I'm going to sit in this. I'm not going to rush it. And I'm not just going to like try to make this person feel like I've got something else to do and try to like step off and walk off. It's like, nah, dude, like I'm sitting in this. Right. And sometimes as you are aware, like some of those appointments, man, those coffees, those counseling appointments go really long. And those prayers after service, right? Where people are talking to you and they just keep going and going. Like you see some people just like are just like, okay, well, let me just pray for you. It's like, dude, I just don't see, and I mean, maybe there's someone I'm sure could make an argument to this, but it's like, I don't really see Jesus treat people like that in scripture, dude. Like he's not like, oh, I got to go home to my family, or I got to go cook my XYZ, or I got to go to this barbecue. So I'm going to like speed this divine appointment up to get out of here. It's like, nah, dog, like I'm going to sit. We're doing right. This is where I'm at. And so if this makes me late to whatever it is, then hey man, like if obviously if I can be late to this thing, but it's like, dude, I'm just willing to be inconvenienced in this moment. And then uncomfortable is going and talking to new people, man. Like it's not, some people are really hard to talk to. Yeah. Some people are like, you ask them like, hey man, how you doing? Fine. Okay.
What do you do with that?
So with that, I'm just like, I will ask a lot of questions.
But like you can tell sometimes someone's like, they're trying to get you
if somebody, and that's the difference, like using that discernment, right? Somebody that doesn't want to talk, and even when somebody doesn't want to talk, like I'll still go a little longer than normal, just to see if it's like, does this person really not want to talk, or is this person just testing to see if I'm genuinely asking? If I'm like, hey man, how you doing? And they say fine, is this person, because 99% of people that ask you how you're doing, dude, they don't care. They're not there to like hear you out. They're not there to listen. It's a formality, right? Yeah. But so discerning, like, is this somebody that just thinks I'm doing that and isn't? Because there's some people that when they ask me how I'm doing, I'll give them a real answer. I'll just be like, I'm getting through it right now. Like I'm rolling. Like I'm good. Some people, for people that are genuinely asking, sometimes when you push a little bit, like they'll open up and see like, okay, this person like is actually asking me, like is genuinely like cares about where I've come from or like what I do. And that's one of the things I try to do too, man, is like try to find like common ground in some area. Like find an area that they are interested in, that sparks that like interest, and then it's like, all right, dude, like we can connect on this, like we can keep going and build on this. So
I feel like sometimes when someone asks me how are you doing, it's like, how much you want to know, how much time you got. No, sometimes I'll throw something out to make them uncomfortable. Like, well, it's pretty rough, and
life sucks right now.
It's like I'm not the normal. Fine, I'm good.
There you go, dude. But yeah, man, being willing to like, and that's the thing, just asking questions, man. Like asking questions and being genuinely interested in the person goes a long way, bro. Yeah. Goes a long way.
this will be our last one. So if you could leave our listeners or viewers, wherever you're watching this, but with something like a challenge, a takeaway, like, hey, take this, go apply it to your life and your ministry today, what would that be?
I mean, my first thing would be invite someone into your home, man. Like, have someone over for dinner. Like, let someone into your space, and at the very least, like, go get coffee with somebody. And this is something I'll say too, man, is like, don't be the person that expects somebody to reach out to you. Don't be that person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you be okay with being the person that initiates every time. Be okay with that.
Yeah.
Like, be willing to be the initiator and ask again and again and again. Because I've been in that position, dude, so many times, man, where it's like, I've asked, hey, do you wanna go get coffee? You wanna get together? And it's like, oh man, I can't and then being consistent and it not happening for months and having to like hit this person up every other month until it happens, and just being okay with that, dude. It's like, some people get so caught up in the fact of like, oh, I'm always the one asking and nobody asks me, and it's like, dog.
Well, doesn't the Bible say, it says like, he who has friends must himself first be friendly? It's like, you want friends, you got to be friendly. Like,
right, dude. Initiate, bro.
Yeah.
That's true, man.
I see that a lot though. People are like burnt out, like, well, I just want someone to invite me, and it's like, that's just not how it is.
Right, dude. It's not how it is all the time.
And honest, I don't know, this is my perspective. It's like, if God's put that on your heart, like, he's calling you to be the initiator. Like, you see that need and you want it for yourself, but it's like, you need to step out into that.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, it's like ministry's kind of like that. Like, in a sense, like, we're the leaders, you know, especially if we're pastors, leaders, for the guys listening. It's like, you got to be that initiator. Otherwise, it's like, what are we doing in leadership, you know?
Absolutely.
Like, we got to lead by example.
And with that too, if you're looking to build like genuine relationships with people, you got to initiate on being vulnerable too. Like, you got to initiate on being willing to like share your weakness, be open with your struggles, dude. Like, that is, I can't tell you how many times that I've sat down with somebody that was really reserved and didn't really know what to expect, because they have their perception on what like a pastor and church leader is, and most of the time it's these like cookie cutter perfect people that are so much better than everybody else. And so when they sit down with somebody that they know is a pastor, it's like they got this like shield up, dude. They got this wall up where it's like, dude, I'm not. Either they're gonna pretend and fake like they're all perfect too, or they're just gonna like, I don't know, just sit there and not really be open with you. And there's been so many times where conversation is going whatever way, and I'm just like, let them know, talk about something that I'm like wrestling with or struggling with or something, and it really like allows them. It's like, oh snap, this dude is not perfect. One, he's a human being. Like, he's struggling with stuff, and they start opening up with their struggles, dude. And it's like, you create this opportunity where you're bearing each other's burdens, dude. And then you have the opportunity to like encourage each other, dude. That's another thing too, man. It's like, there's been so many times where I've sat down to encourage somebody, and it turns out that they're just like the ones that completely just like bless me, man. It just encouraged me, and it's like, dude, that's crazy, bro. Like, I went into this with the mentality going into this meeting, like, all right, like with whether this expectation was based off of something real or not, walking into it with the mindset of like, all right, I'm gonna minister to this person, and just sitting down, dude, and just getting like so ministered to, bro. And so it's like, dude, that's what church is, man. Like, that is what capital C church is that those moments where I'm like, dude, this is church, bro. Like, we went to church right now. And this coffee shop, like, that just happened. It's good, man.
Like, you can't have church without community.
That's a fact. Like, you can't have church without community, dude. And that's why, hey, man, I'm just gonna throw this out. Like, people, you're just sitting at home, bro, watching it online. I know. You gotta go experience it, dog. You gotta go be with your people, man. Be with your people.
It's preaching right now. For all you people watching.
Oh, you watch it?
But yeah, this is good stuff. And I love what you said about community, being vulnerable, being inconvenienced. These are facts, things that we can't get around. And so it's like if you're in leadership and want community, we have to embrace those. But if you're also, maybe you're not in leadership and you just want community, you got to be vulnerable and get out there as well. And so here's my challenge for you guys watching or listening this week, soon, but think of one step that you can take to build real, authentic, biblical community. And what might that look like? Maybe like JD said, invite someone over to dinner at your house tonight. And this is one thing I was thinking too. I don't know what your family dynamics is like, but Amber likes our house to be perfect and clean. And I'm like, we have 3 kids and our house is messy. We clean up and 5 minutes later everything's over. But part of us, for me anyways, like just let them see the mess. This is our life and we don't need to make it look like it's something perfect. But so for some of you guys watching and listening, maybe a challenge for you is invite someone over for dinner, or maybe someone invited you and you need to take that step and go out there and be known and show up and receive the invitation, or maybe it's joining a small group or checking in on a friend. But whatever it is, do something, initiate some community this week. And if this episode was encouraging, make sure you like it, subscribe to the channel, but share it out with a friend, a pastor, a ministry leader who could use this little encouragement about building community, and see if it doesn't bless them as well. And so, JD, thanks for being on, first guest, and I think it's gonna be good. Where can people connect with you if someone on the other side of the country?
IgnitionTucson.church. That's our young adults website. We got a YouTube page, Ignition Tucson. So
Ignition Tucson. Let's go.
Right, dude, you're OG, dude.
Yeah. I know.
Baby.
I know. Take care of it.
No,
you're doing great. Yeah. But yeah, thanks for joining, man. Until next time, guys, go build some real community. We'll see you on the next one.